Okay, that's day one for the grade ones. Let's move on to the Wednesday, and we've already had a message up. I don't know if everybody could see that or not, saying that we're running out of time on this first call, so we'll be back on for part two whenever this runs out. We might just get a chance to squeeze in the Ballymore first race on Wednesday, 2-5, of course. We've got joint favourites in this one with Gaillard du Mesnil. That's probably Eddie Waring pronunciation, Gaillard du Mesnil, and Bob Ollinger. Around about 11-4 for Willie and for Henry de Brumhead. Thoughts on the race then, Ben?
I really like Brave Man's Game, I must admit. He's got a few things to overcome, hasn't he? A bad record of Challow winners at Cheltenham, full stop, and in this race. And obviously Paul Nicholls has never won this race or the Albert Bartlett. He's not got a good record in the sort of staying novice hurdles. But to be fair to him, he's not had too many runners, which is a bit surprising considering all those good staying chasers he's had through his hands. Obviously Denman was second in this race, as was Rock on Ruby. But Brave Man's Game, I love this horse. His only defeat this season was to Soaring Glory over 2, and we've seen what that horse has done over 2. And since stepping up to 2.5, he's just looked a different animal. And I love how efficient he is. He's so professional. He travels, he jumps, he does everything in the right manner. And if there's one that beats him from Ireland, they're going to be a very, very good horse. And he's one of my better bets of the week, I think, Brave Man's Game. You look at the market now with the money for Bob Ollinger and Gaillard du Mesnil, and I think he even represents a fair price at what he's gone out to, around 4-1.92. So yeah, strongly on Brave Man's Game for me.
Yep, I like him. Dan, anything different?
No, I think it stayed in the UK, and I think I definitely prefer Brave Man's Game of the trio at the head of it. But I do think Bear Gills has got an awful lot of ability. He's probably not in the same mould as Brave Man's Game, who Ben mentioned. Denman, who was second to Nicanor that year. He's so similar to Denman, isn't he? Physique-wise, really. He's just got the same air of like a really top-notch chasing prospect for next season. He's improving rapidly as well. I mean, he's not taking baby steps. He's thriving from run to run, and he absolutely dismantled them at Newbury. He dismantled good horses as well, like Stargate. So I think he's definitely the pick of that trio who have cornered the betting. But say just to add a bit more meat to the Bear Gills bone, you don't have to get all three of them out of the placings. You only need one of the big three out of the placings. I think in a properly run race like this, he might finally settle. Maybe he'll even concentrate and jump a bit better. But he's got just a huge amount of ability, this horse. That day he won at Linfield, first time out, where he pulled all the way around. And he wasn't beating trees. The form worked out outrageously well. And I think he's well worth his place in a race like this. He's the sort of horse to me that will really thrive in this different scenario compared to those tactical, smallish field novice races that, admittedly, a lot of them have run in. But yeah, I'm hoping and I'm thinking this is going to stay in Britain for once. Okay,
just I quite liked when I looked at the prices. If you're looking for something to try and get in the frame, folks, The Real Deal, who dotted up in a race over a similar trip in a grade 2 at Punchestown back in January. So I'm going to stick him up there if anybody's thinking of it.
I think he might
play.
There was some breaking. I saw some doubts over his participation because of something to do with the stable. I have a feeling they might have. Have they pulled rank? Have they pulled with him?
Okay, fine.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong.
In that case, don't back him, folks.
Unless you're not running no bet.
Not running no bet, yeah.
That might be
not running no bet. 16-1, something like that. Might get you in the frame if they do decide to take that route. The Brown Advisory is next up. Then this one is, of course, 3 miles. What used to be known as the RSA, Great Gold Cup Trial. In more recent times, anyway, it wasn't for a long time, was it? It used to be a race that bottomed out. So many of them that they didn't seem to come back and win Gold Cups. But Denman, Bobsworth, Lord Windermere in recent times. Monkfish, many people's idea of a banker for the week. 11-8 on. Could that still look value about 8-9 minutes, whatever it is, after they've kicked on? A bit less than that, won't it? It'll be 8 or 9 minutes. They'll be they'll be in the
really
enclosure. What do you think, Dan? Monkfish?
I just don't think there's any competition. I mean, he looks. I mean, he's sort of brave man's game of this year. He's sort of what I think brave man's game might be next season when put over fences. It's just clearly was his calling all along, and he's taken to it very well, and he's got all the makings of a top-notch chaser, and he's looked it, and it's not just the fact he's been so impressive, and the likes of latest exhibition, very good novices in their own right, have tried desperately to run the finish out of him, and it hasn't happened. It's the fact that I think the competition is weak, and Remasters maybe best of the British after his win at Ascot in the Reynoldstown, but I think he'd be better placed going for the 4 mile. So I don't know what beats him. I really don't. Maybe Ben can help us.
It's going to sort of make some of those other races, like the National Hunt Chase, probably a bit more competitive than otherwise, because people will be looking at this thinking, Ben, what's the point? And so he might end up, with the red carpet laid out for him here.
Yeah, he's outstanding chaser, isn't he? He wouldn't be out of place in the Gold Cup field, I don't think. You're really, really nitpicking with this, just to try and get him something to try and get him beaten. But I think when you're 8 to 13, 8 to 11, you're allowed to, say some silly things. So we'll have a go. And he was
Never been
really,
frightened
really...
of that, have you? Never been afraid of that.
Absolutely not, no. He was really keen in the Albert Bartlett last year, and he ran like a chaser, didn't he? He ran like he needed a fence. He gave them plenty of air, and since he's gone over fences, he's just been superb. And he hasn't been keen. I think fences have really made a man of him. And then last time over 2.5, he was just brilliant. And he, I think he could win a marsh quite easily. As obviously he'd have Envoy Island to take on this year, but that'd be some race. So I just wonder, could he race inefficiently and be a little bit keen and just give the other rivals a window of opportunity? It's the only thing I can think of, because he does everything so well, and he hasn't shown over fences that he might do. So that's the only thing I can think of. He had his problems since coming from Willie Mullins's, but he's a hugely talented horse and looks really impressive in 2 chase starts. He, I think, can be a player, as can Eklat de for Henry de Brumhead, and Henry de Brumhead, of course, with a formidable team going into Cheltenham this year. And this horse his jumping has been really, really impressive. He jumped round Punchestown like an old hand on his chasing debut, and then impressed again when beating Ascari at 10 and some good novices at Naas last time. And he takes a familiar Henry de Brumhead RSA chase route, doesn't he? That Monolly and Minella Endo took as well. And although the best they could manage was second, and he could well be playing for second behind Monkfish, I do think he'll run well. He might need soft ground to be at his best, but he's such a good jumper. He must give himself a chance.
Look, I like him each way as well. I've got to say, they've got the red ink next to that one on the thing. If anybody was looking for something, just have another bet on in case anything drastic goes wrong with Monkfish. And obviously, we hope that's not the case on the day, but these things do happen in racing sometimes. What about latest exhibition? I mean, we both talked about him, particularly you, Dan, earlier on. 12's 14 to 1. Is he still not an each way play in a race where there's not a lot else apart from the favourite?
Well, I think there was some question of whether they will go or which race they go for. The 4 mile was moved to as well.
Yeah.
A couple of things will put me off. He's shown twice, despite being off for his life, that he couldn't beat Monkfish, and I thought he had really hard races in the process. Right. He was ridden like as firmly as you can be to try and put it up to Monkfish in the straight. At Leopardstown, it didn't work out, and it had happened the time before as well. So I really do think, I don't even think he's an each way proposition either, because of the fact that I think he's had 2 punishing races, and I won't be surprised if he bombed out. Any
thoughts on latest X, Ben, before we move on?
I don't think he'll run. I think he's going to Fairyhouse for the novice, the Grade 1 novice at Fairyhouse, and he's been saved for that, I think.
Okay, so happy with Monkfish as a winner, and a couple of others, Eklat.
He's not really one you want to take on, is he, Monkfish? No. He looks superb. I think if I'm going to have an each way bet in the race, it'll be if it's genuine soft ground, I'll back Eclat de Rare each way.
Okay. Champion Chase, another one, another odds-on jolly in Chacun Pour Soi against previous dual champion Altios, trading about 7-1. Newbie Negra, of course, impressive in beating Altior in the Desert Orchid at Kempton in December. Politolog, defending champ. And First Flow. I think this is an interesting, very interesting Champion Chase renewal. If you took out Chacun Pour Soi, and it might not be that you both fancy it to win, I'm not sure, we'll find out. But if you took it out, then who are you going for then, sort of thing? It makes it a very open contest. But who are you with, Ben?
Chacun Pour Soi is obviously a top class horse. The one thing that he hasn't done is run at Cheltenham, and obviously he hasn't come up the hill. And I do wonder if he's just a little bit too short with that in mind. Obviously the way he's won around Leopardstown, hugely impressive. Again, there's not many chinks in his armour, and you are scratching around looking for things to take him on with, which you'll have to do with a lot of favourites next week at Cheltenham. And it's just deciding which ones you're going to have a go at. I'd rather have a go at Chacun Pour Soi than Monkfish, I must admit, just with that not going up the hill before at the back of my mind. And I think it's quite a deep race as well. I love the Champion Chase, always a great race. And when you look at last year and the disappointment we had with Altior and Chacun Pour Soi not making it, it was a poor renewal. But this year looks really good. There's some up and comers. We've got the old champions as well, and we've got the best 2 mile chaser in training, who is Chacun Pour Soi. So I'm really looking forward to it. But I will be taking him on.
With?
Well, that's a good question. I don't like Altior. Obviously, brilliant horse, 4-time festival winner, but he just looks regressive to me. And what have we seen him 4 times since he last won the race 2 years ago? 2 of those are defeats to Surname and obviously Newbie Negra the last time we saw him, and 2 victories over Sir Royal. And I just don't think he's going to be quick enough anymore. And I know Nicky Henderson's putting cheap pieces on him, isn't he? Which is an interesting angle. He's had first-time cheap pieces on a Grade 1 winner at Cheltenham before with Zaynar, but that was in a Triumph Hurdle, and there's 7 years difference in age here, and we just know how difficult it is for an 11-year-old in the championship races. And I think it's just going to be too hot for him. As much as I'd love to see him storm up the hill for a 5th festival success, I can't see it. So I'm looking at the young guns. I'm looking at the up and comers, like Newbie Negra, like First Flow, who was fantastic in a brilliant Clarence House last time. I think he's a player if it's soft. I think if it's any better than that, he might struggle a bit. I'd love to see Kim Bailey have a Champion Chase winner with First Flow, and it'd be fantastic. I'm thinking that we might be looking at good to soft ground. I think you've got to put your sort of weather hat on at this stage when we're getting this close. And I wouldn't rule out a big run from Rouge Vif. I think when you look back at last year's novices, he might be the best of them. He was 3rd in the Arkle on soft ground, but he's such a better horse on better conditions. Never been out of the first 2 on good to soft ground or better. Beat Newbie Negra easily in the Kingmaker last year on those sort of conditions. Put in a fantastic performance in handicap company off a mark of 156 at Cheltenham earlier in the season, which puts him bang there in the, without Chacun Pour Soi ratings. So at 25-1, he's on my each way radar.
Interesting call. Mr. Barber?
I've gone around in circles with Chacun Pour Soi. I think we'll know the outcome of this race at the last fence. I think if he's 5 lengths clear, he'll seal the deal. If he's only got a length or 2 clear, I think he'll be vulnerable, because I think he does so much of his running on the bridle. He's never really had to prove that he finds loads. And even at Dublin Racing Festival, the key aspect of that was that burst between horses approaching the second last that took him to the front. That was of a top-notch 2 mile that we know he is. But we've got slight doubts about the stiffer track. horses like First Flow will be ridden to put it up to him and test that angle. But in my heart of hearts, I think he's come for the best horse in the race. So my approach is to take him out of the equation altogether, look in the without favourite markets. And the one I still think has some hopes at biggish price is Grenadine. And I think he's 33s outright. He'll be about 12s, 14s without the favourite. You back him each way. Shack and Poursoir wins. You basically got a bet on him finishing the first four there. And I thought he was a potential champion chase at the start of the season. He won the Haldon Gold Cup to half confirm that he was of that merit. And then he ran into an eyeballs out, bang on song, Politologue at Sandown, had Rouge Vif a little bit behind him. And I just felt his run at Newbury was a complete throwout. He was so free, pulled Cobden's arms out for most of the race. Still at the third last, he looks a threat and a proper runner until the early exuberance takes its toll. I think he'll settle better with that run under his belt and in a strongly run race. And I mean, he's a big, scopy horse who I think his best days should still be ahead of him. And I like the idea that he won't have anything to do with the early pace. So I think if you're backing something each way in this, you want something that will be picking up the pieces, and he might be a candidate. I thought he was overpriced in that market.
That's Grenadine. For Dan, I've got to say, if I'm going to take on the favourite with anything, and it wouldn't be with a win bet probably, it would be First Flow. When I saw he was entered for the Clarence House before Christmas, I was actually writing the spotlights for Weatherby. And I remember mentioning to the boys, if Kim Bailey doesn't enter horses in Grade 1 races, if he's not seriously thinking about going there, it's not just we'll give him an entry like some trainers might do. He's clearly thinking this is going to go places. And so I stuck him up. I think it was a massive price. I think at Weatherby, something like 5-4. When he did sort of have to work a little bit to earn the win that day, didn't he? But very impressed with what he produced at Ascot since then. Yes, I think we need some rain for him. Those of us who are going to have a little interest, but I just think he still looks progressive. I think his trainer's he's not far from confident, but he's confident he'll run a big race. I think, but certainly not confident he's a winner. I think he's named his other one in the Ultima as his best chance of the week. But anyway, First Flow. My thoughts on the champion chase. So, any thoughts on the bumper briefly before we move on to day 3?
I would. It's a show your backside in binge window job if it doesn't go to Ireland. That's all I know really. I think the British form, just even by the normal standards, just doesn't stack up. The best British bumper horse if they were to all go here, would be the mare Eileen Dover, and she isn't going. She's being saved for age. She'd be getting the weight. She'd be the only one I think could even trouble them. Maybe Wonderwall for Richard Spencer's second best on the basis that he's a speed horse, and if the ground's on the quick side, he might have a chance. But it's between the first two in the market. The market have had him nailed for months now, weeks and months. I don't see an angle.
Ben, anything? You don't have to say anything if you don't want it. It's one of those races, isn't it?
It's just interesting, is it, with Sir Gerhard going to Willie Mullins, who's already got Kilcrut, and Kilcrut just looked unbelievable, didn't he, at the Dublin Racing Festival? So it's going to go to Willie Mullins.